Before we move on to the next section, which would be your level 5, I want to orient you to the ventral surface of the brainstem. Here again we can see the olive, inferior olivary complex, the pyramid on the ventral surface of the medulla, and we can see this huge area here called the pons. And underneath this would of course be the pontine gray and the cortical spinal and cortical bulbar and cortical pontine fibers. Here we can see a nice trigeminal nerve. Here we can see cranial nerve 6 and cranial nerve 7. So in the next section we're going to cut the brain so that we get a little piece of the trigeminal, but I'm going to go further caudally as I go dorsally. I'm going to cut like this, and then I'll show you what we're going to see in the next slide. This looks like your level 5. You can see these big middle cerebellar peduncles here, white, all myelinated. You can see some of the 5th cranial nerve here penetrating the middle cerebellar peduncle. What you don't see in your slides are these deep cerebellar nuclei up here. This would be the dentate nucleus. This is going to give rise to the superior cerebellar peduncle, which is going to go forward. We come down in here, we can see some white matter down here. These would be the ALS, TTT, and medial lemniscus down in here. We can see the cortical spinals and cortical pontines down here in the basilar pons. Up here we can see a white myelinated bundle called the MLF, some abducens, which would be bluish underneath it, and some of the motor 7 fibers out here lateral, right here. If we look at the adjacent section down here, again we can see the middle cerebellar peduncles, the dentate nucleus, which is going to give rise to the superior cerebellar peduncle. We go down in here, we can see the myelinated cortical spinals down here. We can see in here the ALS, medial lemniscus. Now we go up on top here, we can see 2 myelinated bundles on the midline called the MLF. Here on this side, we can see the white myelinated motor 7 fibers. Down in here, you see the bluish motor 7 nucleus, and right up on top there on the right, you'd see the nice, very beautiful abducens nucleus. When we look at this level right here, this is comparable to your level 7 that we've talked about in the module. What you can't see in the module is this overlying cerebellum here. But what you can see in your sections in the module is this big, heavily myelinated structure right here, superior cerebellar peduncle. Now remember, these cell bodies of these axons are in the ipsilateral deep cerebellar nuclei, which we've seen in earlier sections, but you can see how big this is, dominates this level. Remember, these axons are going forward, going to cross at the next level, go to the opposite rubra, VA, VL. On the midline, you can see 2 white bundles right there, the medial longitudinal fasciculus. You can also see some fibers down in here and here, which would be the medial lemniscus, ALS, TTT. Then you come down in here to the basilar pons. Again, you see lots of myelinated fibers cutting cross section going in and out of the plate. These would be cortical bulbars, cortical spinals, cortical pontines, and then you can see all these blue staining cell groups here, the pontine gray. If we move slightly rostral to about our level 8, you can see these little 4th cranial nerves here coming out right behind the inferior colliculi, which are just up here. Again, you can see on the midline the white myelin stained medial longitudinal fasciculus. Here you can see the superior cerebellar peduncle. Again, these fibers haven't crossed, but you can see some of it starting to cross down here. Down in here you can see the beginning of the cerebral peduncles and what's left of the pontine gray. Again, this is a little bit different. You can see some of the substantia nigra stained blue here, but more importantly, these myelinated fibers out here, just underneath it, would be the ALS, TTT, and medial lemniscus. But again, our defining characteristics would be superior cerebellar peduncle, trochlear nerve. Sitting somewhere down in here stained blue right on top of the MLF would be the trochlear nucleus. All right, the defining characteristic of level 9 would be the decussation of the superior cerebellar peduncle. And you can see that myelinated bundle very white here. You can see the cerebral peduncles down here. You can see how big they are. Remember, these are cerebral peduncles, not cerebellar. These are full of cortical spinals, cortical pontines, and cortical bulbars. So again, the superior cerebellar peduncle decussation, the cerebral peduncle. Now you can see some of the rootlets coming out ventral here. This little space is called the interpeduncular fossa between the peduncles. You can see some of the third nerve rootlets coming out. We go up the top, you can see some of the inferior colliculus is missing on this side, but we can see it on this side. All right. You can see the aqueduct. You can see some of the MLF sitting there lightly stained because we're staining cell bodies. You come out here laterally, we're going to see the ALS, TTT, and medial lemniscus. Also, we can see it's darkly stained down here, always sitting on the peduncle, the substantia nigra. Now, we have two sections here that are going to represent your level 10. They show slightly different things. Here we can see these bumps right here, which would be the superior colliculi. Remember, each superior colliculus receives visual input from the opposite side of the visual field and then projects into the tectospinal tract. We can see the cerebral aqueduct and the cells around it, periaqueductal gray. When we stimulate this, we have stimulation-produced analgesia. We can cut down the pain and temperature coming in the spinal cord. You can see myelin right here, which is the just rostral to the decussation of the superior cerebellar peduncle. You can see the substantia nigra sitting right on the cerebral peduncle. You can also see something you don't see in your sections in lecture. You can see a little piece of the thalamus right here called the medial geniculate body. Now, a little bit rostral here. I'm showing this to show the peduncle right here on each side, the beautiful nigra, but also you can see the gorgeous Ruber, Duber, Sluber, Kluger here. Look how nice that is. You can see some of the fibers medial to it that have already crossed from the superior cerebellar peduncle. We go up a little more dorsal here. You can see the blue stained fibers of the Edinger-Westphal ocular motor complex. And again, the cerebral aqueduct will be right there.